people of the internet. I'm just gonna get right into it. I have mentioned a few times on my channel that there is a book that I DNF'd actually in a fit of rage rather than because the book was bad. And I've been saying for a while that I'm thinking of picking this book up again and maybe giving it another chance because I actually want to like this book. And so that book is The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski, and this is the first novel in like the Witcher series of novels, which is the book series that inspired the video game The Witcher. And I'm pretty sure this is just like a bundle of like short stories. So I picked this book up in 2018 and like about a year ago, and I just really wanted to like this book. I have never played the video games, but I want to at some point. I just didn't own an Xbox back in the day and they used to be exclusive, so but like obviously for a video game with so much like wonderful immersive lore and something that people really like, you know, I thought like rather than buying a console and a bunch of old games, I'm maybe gonna check out the source material. So like I really wanted to like these books, and all I will say about the reason that I DNF'd it was there was a scene, and we will probably come to it in this video. There was a scene that just involved some really disgusting things that were said that I think was from the author's perspective about a very vulnerable underage fictional girl, and it just like really creeped me out and really grossed me out, and so like I kind of just like yeeted this book across the room and did not read anymore, which was kind of sad because like up until then I'd sort of been like enjoying the book. So it's actually really short, and I think I could maybe read this in like a day. It's kind of midday, so maybe like 2 days. So what I'm gonna do, and this is going to be like a weird kind of reading vlog, but I'm essentially just going to read this. It's not going to be the kind of like cute, like aesthetic, like ooh, watch me make tea and pet my cat kind of reading vlog. This is more the kind of reading vlog where I just want to focus on the book, and I'm probably going to read a fair bit of it out to you, and it is just like a collection of short stories, so like I'm not sure how like spoilers this video could be like for the rest of the series, because I don't think any of these really carry on or have that much weight in terms of like the series as a whole, because I know there's some debate about like what order you could read the novels in, whatever. I don't really care. The point is, if you really don't want spoilers for this book, then maybe don't watch this video. But if you're here for the salt as I read this, because I actually do want to like it, but I am coming from a real salty place picking this back up. So I'm kind of hoping that I'm going to push through and that it gets good and that I actually like it, and then maybe I can move on to the rest of the series. But it's kind of like separating the artist from their actual art. I'm going to start reading this, and like honestly, if you've never read this book, I seem to remember that the intro was an absolute ride, so please join me. As I just like, I really want to like it. I almost want to force myself to like it, because like not only did I like pay full price for a book, which like hurts, you know, when you don't like it, but I would just really like to enjoy it and then read the rest of the series and like have a good time, because everyone else who's read it hasn't picked up on any of the things that I find are just a bit like, ugh, do you know? If my voice is really echoey, I am sat in my family's conservatory, and like it's not finished. Like look at the ceiling, she's not done. So I guess I'm gonna start reading this book. Okay, so like I know this location is like slightly less aesthetic than the last one, but this is a bigger sofa where I can just kind of like lay back a bit. So this is where I'm gonna start reading because like we're in it for the long haul. So great, it's gonna be great. I don't think I explained what this book is. It's like a fantasy series, and it follows this main guy, Geralt, who is a witcher, and he's portrayed by this like lovely but also like kind of scary looking man on the front. And like if you think that you want to get away from him and you turn the book over, it's like, oh no, he's there on the back as well. It kind of just triggers my immense dislike of having real people on book covers, but we'll push past it. So here's our opening line. She came to him towards morning. She entered very carefully, moving silently, floating through the chamber like a phantom. The only sound was that of her mantle brushing her naked skin. Yet this faint sound was enough to wake the Witcher, or maybe it only tore him from the half-slumber in which he rocked monotonously, as though travelling through fathomless depths, suspended between the sea bed and its calm surface amidst gently undulating strands of seaweed. Now, that sounds like a really nice opening, but then again, this is a translation, so I have to wonder exactly how much of that is just kind of like, I would say take it with a pinch of salt, but like, I'm already the pinch of salt for this video, so. Okay, this is the intro I remember, and like, when I first read this, I remember just reading it like, sorry, what? He did not move, did not stir. The girl flitted closer, threw off her mantle, and slowly, hesitantly, rested her knee on the edge of the large bed. He observed her through lowered lashes, still not betraying his wakefulness. The girl carefully climbed onto the bedclothes and onto him, wrapping her thighs around him. Leaning forward on straining arms, she brushed his face with hair which smelt of chamomile. Determined, and as if impatient, she leant over and touched his eyelids, cheeks, lips, with the tips of her breasts. I'm sorry, what? Like, excuse me? Like, sorry, what? Like, I get that he's trying to open this on like a sex scene and just be like, yeah, there's this really like hot naked girl and she's gonna come, and in order to wake him up, her grand plan, rather than be like, hey, are you up? Do you want a bone? She's gonna like poke her boob in his eye, right? Like she's just gonna poke his face with her nipples until he wakes up, and I'm just like, do people do this? Like I don't know, to me that just seems really weird, but oh yeah, and the best part of this is, this girl doesn't have a name, and I don't think she gets like a name till maybe like a throwaway line in like a few chapters, and it's just kind of like, great, like naked, nameless girl coming and poking her tits in the main character's eyes. Gives me a real feel of like what the rest of this book is going to be like, and it's like that a lot. So that entire scene, it was just there, and it just happened. I don't know if there's going to be any significance to it later. I know somebody brings it up in conversation later, and it's just kind of like, oh, just leave that girl alone, you already banged her, or something like that. Because that's 1 page long. Like, that little titty poking in the eye sex scene is here, and then on the next page, it's a different story, and it's about him going to a bar. Okay, so like from that point on, the book actually like starts to get decent. People don't like Geralt because he's from Rivia, and like this is wisdom. So like we've sort of got like some social politics thrown in there. So like, you know, the world building comes very slowly, but it doesn't feel weird or clunky. Like it seems a very, it like eases you in naturally, you know? It's nice. Like if you forget the titty eye scene from the first page, you know, this could be a normal book. Oh yeah, I love this description of this guy. He's described as a pockmarked beanpole of a man, and it's like, you know, I'm gonna use that. Like the next time someone who looks like a pockmarked beanpole insults me or something, or like starts getting in my face, I'm gonna be like, oh, you pockmarked beanpole. Like, it's a good description, you know? A pockmarked beanpole of a man. I like that. One thing like I do notice about the writing is that it's very like matter of fact, and I don't know if that's just like the way that like Polish is as a language or something, and it's maybe not translating as well, because we would probably say that like slightly differently in English. So much of this world is just so casual about monsters and murder. This guy has just basically explained that the king's daughter, because she was born of incest, was born like this hideous creature, and so the king decided to bury her in a tomb, but she didn't die. She grew for 7 years, and then for another 7 years she's just been like roaming around, killing people at night, like as this hideous creature, before going back to her tomb. And like this guy is just like, there's just nothing we can do. We're just gonna ignore it. It's fine. Just leave it. Just don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. Like, it's just a thing that happens now. And it's just like, it's such a weird perspective for a character to have. Like, he's just kind of like, just leave it. It just kills people sometimes. Like, it's just a thing that goes on here. Don't worry about it. I'm like he mentions that this one guy came and, you know, was like, oh, I'll sort out this problem, but I want the reward. Like, in advance, ahead of time, because obviously he's going to risk his life, and they just assumed that he was going to be a fraudster, and he just said, so we put him in a sack and threw him in the lake. And I'm like, you know, as you do. So like I have read like all this bit already, and I think it's maybe going to be like 1 or 2 more chapters before I get to like the point where I got real angry. But like, you know, like I remember why I was enjoying this story to start off with, because it's like the writing's a little bit clunky, but then it's a translation, so I'm kind of ignoring that. And I don't know, there's just something very, it kind of makes the fantasy aspect of all these like weird and terrible creatures, it makes it seem mundane, like not in a bad way though, just in like a, I don't know, a lot of fantasy books are kind of like, oh my god, look at these creatures and this magic, and in this it's just kind of like, yes, shit exists, we're just trying to get on with it, just ignore it. And it's like, I kind of like that. I do like the style of this fantasy, which is why I really want to like this book, but like I'm trying to focus on the good bits where I can. So I'm currently on page 30, and basically what's happened is that there's been this monster called a Striga, which is like the one that I was describing before, and in order to like undo the curse, Geralt has to keep her outside of her like tomb, outside of her sarcophagus for like until dawn, like until dawn breaks. Like he's gone, he's fought her, and now that dawn has broken, she has turned back into a 14-year-old girl. And obviously she's been like in this tomb her whole life, so she's had like 0 contact with other people aside from like eating them as a monster. And it was mentioned before in the book that obviously because of this, you know, she's not going to have like the mind of a normal 14-year-old girl. She's going to know like nothing about like human custom or like how to live or anything like that, and she won't be able to speak, and she's probably not going to be able to like understand very much at all. And so like she's pretty beaten up as well, because they had like a bit of a skirmish, a bit of a fight, like, because obviously if you read this whole book and there was like no battle sequences, then it would be really boring. But anyway, he saved her, he's broken the spell, and she's now unconscious, and obviously naked, and she's like just laying on the ground. Just the way that she's described is, this is one of the bits that made me just like really annoyed, because it's very clearly reflective of the author's point of view. So let me just read this out. It says, she was lying on her back next to the tomb, naked and unconscious. She was rather ugly, slim with small pointed breasts and dirty. Her hair, flaxen red, reached almost to her waist. Her lips were pale and her face was bloody where he had hit her cheekbone. So like that's the only description of her we get. So it doesn't say why she's ugly, except that she's like, she's, I don't know, maybe got messy hair, she's been beaten up, but she's skinny with like small pointed breasts, and I'm like, she is also 14. I'm just like, I don't know, there's just something that kind of like really gives me like this, you know, feeling of just absolute visceral disgust at like an adult male author describing an unconscious naked 14-year-old as ugly because she has small pointy boobs. It's like, I don't know. And like, I know you can say like about the time period, I know it's a fantasy, but obviously you can talk about like, you know, treatment of women at that time, or like different ages, or blah blah blah, but at the same time, if you say that somebody's ugly and then give a short description, you know, we have to assume that obviously those are things that you are saying that make this person ugly, regardless of what that is. And it's just so very clearly part of the author's own point of view, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know, can we maybe not can we maybe not call underage girls that are clearly like, possibly at this point because she's been like a weird creature, basically prepubescent, as being ugly for not having like, you know, great big titties? Like, is that really where we've come to? I mean, you know, she's not going to be poking anybody in the eye or in the face with her boobs anytime soon, and I guess that's just really not acceptable. So yeah, I remember really not liking that part. But I know I've read past this, so like I can't remember if there's anything else that like made me really salty and like yeet this book away from me. But I remember I did get real annoyed by that, because it's just like, just why? Honestly, just why? Reading on, at this point, some wizard is trying to essentially convince him that like there's some sort of prophecy occurring because of like girls born after the full moon have like horrible mutations or something, and he's saying, you know, this is just how it was with girls born after the eclipse. Their outright insane tendency to cruelty, aggression, sudden bursts of anger, and an unbridled temperament were noted. And then Geralt says, you can say that about any woman. Ooh, like I'm gonna fight him. Like, Geralt, you might be a witcher, but I'm gonna fight you, and I'm gonna win because I'm real. You can't leave a bad review for me on Goodreads because you're fictional. Like, there are like literally no women in this story. There's like an old soothsayer type woman who has briefly been in it, but other than that there are like no women. None of them have lines, none of them have names, and I'm just kind of like, I'm sure some women will pop up in the series at some point, but something tells me they're probably all just going to be like complimentary ass and titties for the male character, like something like I really hope I'm wrong, because like there's parts of this that I like and that I would like to enjoy. I'm now getting a Snow White retelling. I know BookTube loves retellings, but like this just kind of came out of nowhere. Like I just wasn't expecting it. Like I turned the page and it's like, oh, 7 gnomes. I just didn't see it coming. Hello. I just didn't expect that from a Witcher book. Hi. Except the differences in this retelling, instead of being, you know, Snow White, she's nicknamed Shrike because she impales people, and I think there was some sort of like argument between her and all the gnomes, and they all just slaughter each other. Apart from her, she survives. Like, man, the Disney retelling could have been so brutal. I actually think I would have preferred to watch an animated version of this rather than like the crappy Disney one as a kid, but personal taste, I guess. Okay, so after being like 100 and a bit pages through this book, I'm kind of still half and half on it. Like, I really like the bits of story that it's trying to tell. I really like, I guess, the way it's told. It's not that entertaining, but at the same time, I just kind of really like the feel of the prose, if that really makes any sense. Like, I don't know, maybe the video games are better, but I don't really think this author is like, I don't know, I don't think he has like the most modern sensibilities when it comes to women and female characters. I don't know, maybe that changes in like the later books because these are all kind of short stories and I don't know. It reminds me of 2 things. Like, I really like the sort of world itself. Something about it just reminds me, it doesn't really feel like an epic fantasy. It's obviously fantasy, but it doesn't feel like, I guess, a lot of like otherworldly, like big epic medieval styled fantasies actually feel like. It feels much more like folklore, which it's just kind of really refreshing. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's because it's just like one dude going around doing his thing, which kind of reminds me of like the way that I play Skyrim and games like Skyrim, where you just go around like doing random little quests and avoiding the main quest because nobody cares about the main quest. Like, I want to do all the side quests. That's kind of what it feels like. And I don't know, I guess like all the various like ghouls and beasties and things are all like, they are very rooted in, I guess, like European folklore, and like there's so many just like really cool different like myths and legends and creatures that like a few of them I recognize. A few of the names in here are new to me, but I can kind of like gather what they're meant to be. But like I do research on a lot of that stuff because like it's just interesting, and I'm just that bitch that likes to know about this kind of stuff. So I don't know, I kind of like that there's so much going on and things are just kind of mentioned like every day, like they're just a part of normal life. It kind of almost feels like I'm on like a Wikipedia article, or like I'm just reading up about something, do you know what I mean? I almost don't feel like I'm reading a story, and I don't know whether that's because it's like lots of little like interconnected like short stories and whatnot, but it almost feels like I'm reading like little bits of folklore from like a Wikipedia page, which again I kind of like, because that's something I will do in my free time, and they're interesting regardless of the way that they're written, because it's just interesting to know those things. Like if you're reading a bit of folklore, it's like you read it because you're interested to know that bit of folklore. It doesn't matter how good the writer is at portraying stuff, it doesn't matter how good like the actual writing itself is, you just kind of want to know the folklore, and that's what this feels like, and I do really like that. And that's one of the things I remember from the first time that I read it, or tried to read it. It's one of the main reasons that I really wanted to try and push through and get to the rest of the series, because the actual writing itself and the way the world is presented and like the way the story takes place, I actually do really enjoy. And I feel like these are the sort of books where if I managed to get into the series, I could just pick up like as and when at whim. Like I don't see myself getting particularly invested or connected to these characters, mainly because of the way I guess the author is portraying them to me. It's not really how I like characters, but as a world and as a story I do really enjoy it. So I don't know, I'm really hoping that they get better as I go on, and this is like why I'm trying to like push myself to read them. Obviously it's like if you don't like something about a book, and you know, you totally don't have to force yourself to read it. I'm just doing it because I think for me it will be worthwhile. I know there are like much beloved female characters later in at least the video game series, so I'm assuming at some point in the books we must get like decent female characters. I'm kind of hoping that at the end of it will be worthwhile, and that by the end of this book I will either like it enough to say, okay, yes, I've gotten past this and I can finally pick up what I hope is going to be like a better series, because it'll be like obviously like more cohesive and it'll follow on and it won't just be short stories, I think. And that would be like great, because then I would have a book or a book series that I could read and enjoy, which is like obviously like the best outcome of this, is that I find something I enjoy. I feel like the easy outcome is to DNF it, and obviously like I did at one point because it really annoyed me, but it would be nice if the second time round I didn't dislike it so much. It's just kind of what I'm trying to do. I don't know, but at this point I'm like 100 pages in and I kind of feel like I'm maybe getting a little bit burned out from reading this, and like I kind of want to go make a sandwich, and I kind of want to continue reading, but at the same time I kind of don't really care about the character as a whole. Like he could die on the next page and I'd be like, oh okay, and I'd just like keep reading the rest of it. Like you could replace him and I just literally wouldn't care at this point. And I'm definitely less salty than I was last time. Yeah, I think that's my take so far, and I'm maybe gonna like take a break and then keep going, but honestly I'm hoping that this like experiment will be a success. I hope. Hey, so it's actually been about a week since I read this whole thing. I feel like with booktube sometimes there's like the need to be like very like polarizing, like you're either really for a book or like you're really against a book, and I'm like, I definitely really don't like the author's sort of, I don't know, I guess where he's coming from, but like the world itself and like the plot, they're kind of fine. I mean, it's a collection of short stories, so it's like really how much can I enjoy a collection of short stories anyway? At the same time, like there's nothing that objectively bad about like the concept of like the setup. Like I really like the concept. I really love the concept of like, you know, guy goes around slaying evil creatures. Like I'm a real big fan of it. In fact, like one of my own favourite OCs is that, do we still call them OCs? Do we just call them characters on booktube? I'm from like the DeviantArt days, so but like one of my own characters is like really similar to like this sort of setup, so like I definitely really enjoy this kind of setup, and like I really liked the whole folklore-y kind of aspect of it. I really liked just the really wide variety of like folklore, but while also making it seem kind of mundane, even though like to me these are meant to be like really fantastical beasts. It's kind of just like oh yeah, there's like a weird goat man down the road, he sometimes does stuff. It's kind of like, oh okay. But like, I'm really not a fan of the author's writing style. So much of it is just run on dialogue, like, oh my god, there's an ice cream truck. So much of it is just like run on dialogue, and it's just really not that great. So in the end, I think I gave this a 2 stars, and I feel like probably if I read like some of the proper novels in the rest of the series, which weren't just like paltry little short stories, then I would probably enjoy those a lot more. I'm guessing there would be a lot more characterization, but maybe I keep expecting like the rest of the series that I haven't read to be really good, because I know that the video games are like much beloved by the people that play them, but I just don't think that this book is for me, which kind of sucks because like I really had hoped that I would like this. Like when I bought it, I fully expected to love it, and I just really did not, which is a shame. I still think, probably not this year, but possibly in the future, I think I will pick up one of, well, the first book, like the first actual proper full-length book, and I'll read that, and if it's better, I will first of all let you guys know, and then I'll see if I want to carry on with it. But yeah, it's kind of an awkward outcome because I neither hate this book nor do I actually like it. I just kind of nothing it. It was not the best experience. But like, I'm open-minded, so I think maybe I'll give the rest a try. I've said that like 1,000 times, but yeah, it just seems kind of boring when I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't really hate it as much as I did like the first time I tried to read it, but I also didn't like it, so what do you want me to do? So yeah, that was kind of it for this video. I mean, let me know, especially if you like have an actual real opinion on this book. Would be appreciated. Remember to leave that in the comments down below. I will definitely read it, and probably get back to you, and maybe we could have a nice discussion. Like, let me know if the rest of the books in the series, if you've read them, actually get better, if you really think I should carry on reading these, or if you've read them and they're crap, also let me know so that I don't have to waste my time. Do let me know if you've read the books. So yeah, that was about it for this video. Yeah, I have nothing else. Bye.